Yeah, recently, I went to, it's like this place near me called Nature's Market, and I like to go there to
Hmm.
get like green, like the green juices.
Hmm.
And I was wearing a Star Wars t-shirt, and then the guy behind the counter was too. And I said, "Well, I love Kylo Ren's character. He's my favorite." And he told me that he thinks Kylo Ren is a Jedi man baby. So, and I told him, I was like, "Oh, you better be careful what you say about about my
See,
character."
see that, and I don't hold it against guys who think that way. Honestly, I'm not one of those who's like raging like, oh my god, you can't think that way. What you have to understand is Kylo Ren. Honestly, the way his character was marketed and the way he was created was mainly for women. He was created for women because the one thing that a woman loves in a story, because I've seen it with my aunts, myself included, my friends, they love saving a man.
Yeah.
It does something for, and it's not just that validates a woman just as a woman, but it does something to be able to say, hey, I helped you out. Now look at me and see me, right? You see me now. Hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I saved you. Now what? Bow at my feet, kind of thing. But that's a part of what Rey is going to do is she's not going to physically save Ben. She's going to inspire him. I think Ben's going to save himself. But what we love to see is a male character who has been dragged through the dirt, is the underdog, and then rises from the ashes. We love to see that. And I really believe that Kylo Ren was marketed mainly for women. I think he was
I
to
think
a large degree.
I think like what the big like confusion was, because I agree with you, like me and this guy, like I give him so much crap just for fun, and now when I go in and stuff, I'm like, "Oh, there you are." Like, and it's just like I'll make sure to wear my Kylo Ren t-shirt for him, so it pisses him off. Um but I agree with you that women really love stories about men who are inspired by their love for the woman,
Yeah, and the
so
strength of the woman. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so it's not even, because sometimes I think what happens is that, um like women, like myself included, I've done this too, but we watch these stories, and then we say, well, I really want that to happen to me, and so we choose people who are kind of broken, and want that person to be inspired by us, and in order for them to make better choices in their lives, and sometimes it doesn't happen. And so sometimes I think that that's like where the whole Reylo is problematic thing comes along, but it's not even that Rey is, if you really look at the story, Rey's not trying to change him. She's not trying
Yeah,
to save him. He is inspired by her because he's drawn to the light, he's drawn to her, and he's going to reflect on his life and his choices because of the love that he's developing for her. And so
that's right.
yeah, and it's the same with Beauty and the Beast. Belle doesn't try to change him. She doesn't try to save him. He's saved because of the transformative effect that his love for her has on him. It's the same with
Hmm.
Phantom of the Opera. And so I think that, but I think that women love stories like that because they're so powerful. And, like we want to feel like we have that sort of effect on a man. And,
Hmm.
and also too, Kylo Ren physically appeals to women because he's the dark, brooding type who's, uber sexy and kind of bad boyish. And, and,
And he's very sexual. He has this. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm so sorry.
oh
It's
no,
just I
that's
had to make
totally fine.
I had to make this comment about his features because when I first saw Kylo Ren, I wasn't as attracted to Adam Driver, but I mean, I saw it. I saw why people would be because he has these unconventional features that are very, very. They're not sexual in a typical way. He has an energy about him that is very. It's not physical, but you can sense it. in
Yeah.
everything that he does. And
Yep.
so, yeah, you're definitely right. And they chose him exactly for that reason. He was chosen for that reason.
Yeah,
So you
because
are
it's
precisely
true.
right.
It's true. He
Hmm.
does have a very strong sexual energy, and even in other movies and stuff that he's done, he's very erotic. Like there's just
Hmm.
something very erotic about him, like the way
Hmm.
just the way he is. And so he was like a perfect choice for that in terms of, being marketed towards women. But I think some of like the confusion for men was that initially he seemed to be marketed towards men,
Hmm.
and then he kind of was, but there are a lot of guys who like him, so
Right, right.
he's very divisive when it comes to men. Men either love him or they hate him.
Yeah, that's typical whenever you have a character like Kylo Ren too, because there are certain women who like him and certain women who hate him. But yeah, I agree with the fact that in stories, first and foremost, some of the most inspiring stories are about saving people, and it's not just a woman thing, but it really touches on the heartstrings of a person to realize that they inspired another person just by being who they are. Now, I'll reference this. This happened in my real life, but I had an ex-boyfriend who I never tried to rule him or anything. It was just we went together, and I said, "There are some things I don't agree with that you do, but I'm not your mother. I'm not going to tell you to stop. Just don't do them in front of me." Well, a few months later, he told me that you're the strongest, most inspiring person I've ever met, and you make me want to be a better person. And
That's
then he
awesome.
and then he divulged to me that he had stopped some of the things that I didn't like, and I told him very clearly. I was like, I don't. You do that because that's what you want to do, and he's like, I do. I want to be a better person. So that it runs parallel with Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren is going to want to choose to do this. It's not going to be Rey who saves him, but Rey who inspires him. She saves him, but not in the way you think. She's inspirational, and
Yeah.
he's going to save her too. That's going to be the twist that people are not going to realize. And it's not that if he saves her from the water and anything. No, he's going to save her from her loneliness,
Yeah.
because she's going to realize that no, I don't have to fulfill somebody else by being what they need me to be. I just have to be myself, and then people around me will realize how powerful I am as an individual, how inspiring I am, how beautiful I am, and she's going to want to be around Ben because they're both going to inspire each other. It's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think that that's like a really beautiful way to put it for Ray, because I mean, Ray is obviously getting something out of this too. you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because it's not just going to be about Ben's redemption. It's going to be about Rey finding exactly who she is, and that journey of her becoming a very powerful, determined, sure woman. Her confidence, everything like that. I I always I was never bothered with the arguments that were made about how Kylo Ren and Rey don't need to be near each other because he's so abusive or this or that. Because as a person, I'm very strong-willed. I don't let anybody tell me what to do.
I'm the
So
same.
yeah. So when I saw Rey in the interrogation chair, I was thinking to myself, "Oh shit, boy, you better watch your ass because she's about to turn it on you." And what happens? She turns it on him, and I was like, "Yep, saw that coming."
Yeah. So like where do you want to get started with talking about the trailer? I mean, I still like I've watched it so many times since then, and since we did our first podcast, I'm like, "Oh my God, I have so much more that I want to talk about since then." Especially since other people like in the comment section on the videos have been pointing out things that are interesting,
Oh
and
yeah.
so I have to like go back and rewatch the trailer to see if that's actually like going on, or um I was really happy because this is like kind of a random like way to start off the podcast, but I was really happy because there was someone who commented on my last video. They mentioned, because I noticed this too in the very last clip of the trailer where Kylo Ren is extending his hand towards Rey. It looks as though he's not even wearing his belt, and so someone else ended up noticing this as well, and so it got me thinking about like why he ends up removing his belt. We know
Mhm.
that he has a tracker in that belt because of the First Order, and that's like how he's found on Starkiller Base in the forest before it blows up, and that's how his life is saved. But like, it's just kind of interesting how in that shot it looks like he's not even wearing it, and I wonder if he like deliberately removes it so that way like the First Order has like no way of tracking him, and he kind of like goes off the grid. So what do you think about
Mhm.
that?
Um, I've looked, and it appears like he's still wearing his belt because there was a big conversation about that on Tumblr, and it always appeared to me that he was still wearing his belt, but the clip is so fast that honestly, he might not have been. But it looked like it to me though. So I really either or. I'm open to it, but I'm not as for sure on that. So really, I think we're just gonna have to wait and see.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool, like, or it kind of goes back to remember when I told you I had created a post on Tumblr where I was speculating on how many items of clothing that Kylo Ren would lose throughout the Last Jedi.
Oh
So when I
yeah.
thought that his belt was missing, and I was like, oh yeah, so the party begins.
I'd be totally fine if he gave his cape to Ray. I'd be okay with that. I'd definitely be okay.
I would be okay with that too. Like, especially if he gives it to her like for warmth and stuff because it just happens to be cold, and so they end up like sharing the cape as a blanket or something.
Yeah, and she just happens to be wet, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and he's like, "Here, let me offer you my clothing."
Oh, careful, my mind always goes in the gutter.
So does mine.
Let me see what I wanted. I have several. I have, and this it can be whichever one you'd like to start on. One of them is the TFA versus the TLJ posters and the placement poses of Kylo Ren and Rey, and the other characters too. The importance of what Kylo and Rey are, and how easily a romance between them could actually be portrayed on the big screen. My next subject I'd like to talk about, my favorite part of the trailer, which equals Luke's reaction to Rey.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, like that to me was the coolest part because I think I've said it before. I understand Luke's importance as a character and his overall theme and forgiveness and just how powerful that is, but I've never cared for Luke. But when he reacted that way in the trailer, my ears perked and I was like, oh wow, suddenly I'm interested in you, buddy. Let's see where this goes because you look scared to death. I love it. I really love it. Like, what did you find on your journeys and what happened with Kylo? Like, what in the world happened for you to be so terrified? You went from facing the Emperor and saving the little bit of humanity left in your father to just not even wanting to touch Rey. Like, no, none of that. No, I'm leaving. Goodbye, gone. And she's just heartbroken, this little kicked puppy. Like, why can you not, And I'm very curious now what happened for him to suddenly shift from being this idealistic person who believes in the better of someone else and is willing to extend that hand and give them that chance. And now he just doesn't want anything to do. Once he sees that power demonstrated, he's just like, no, So I'm just very intrigued about that.
That's actually one of my favorite parts of the trailer too, because especially the way he says it
Oh yeah.
is so powerful. Like it actually gives me chills and goosebumps like every single time that he says it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I mentioned this the last time when we tried doing the podcast the first time. Like it kind of reminds me of in a Shakespearean play, like they have an aside or like they sort of they have like their own comments to add to what's going on in the story, like without the other characters knowing what's going on. And obviously like in the trailer it presents itself as though he's only talking to himself, but he could very well be talking to Ray, or he could be talking to someone else. So but just
Mm-hmm.
the way that they presented it reminded me very much that way. And then And then the clip right after that of Rey, I don't know if she's on like a rock or she's leaning against something, but the way that she's kind of sprawled out, she looks kind of like lost, and like you said, she almost looks like this kicked puppy where she's like, "Aw, like why are you rejecting me?"
I know. And you know what? You're right about the way he says it, because it the not, line that it reminds me of, it's not as, well, it is kind of powerful, but it's not the same kind of power as Luke's line. But you remember the stormtrooper telling Kylo, the girl was spotted, or the droid was spotted heading east, and then he does this dramatic pause with a girl, and it was just the way he did it. You knew it was emphasizing that, and then you saw the way Kylo turned all of a sudden, and I mean, he was on the prowl. He was gone from battle into the woods, totally leaving his unit, not caring.
Yeah.
Anyway, that it does. It has that kind of iconic feel. It wants you to focus on those words, and it wants you to resonate with those words and realize the importance of those words. You might not understand what the words mean exactly yet, but to understand that they hold great importance. And it really gets your mind wondering what happened for him to, be like that. And also, what is he actually saying? Because that line it's a little vague. So it gets you wondering, what exactly does he mean? And then you saw what a lot of people are suggesting was the destruction of Luke's academy, which I do agree with them. And you see his robotic hand pop up out of the debris.
Yeah.
And it does. It makes you wonder. And another thing, I think I discussed this in our previous podcast that, the volume didn't work right. And I know some people think they're from two different scenes, but with the two teaser trailers, when it opens up with Rey and she falls forward and you hear her gasping, and that's how that trailer opens, I think that scene is connected to whenever she's meditating. And what possibly happens is she levitates. She has some kind of vision, or something happens to her, and Luke witnesses the whole thing after the ground cracks and all that, and she falls forward. And then she comes crawling back up the rock, and as she's over that ledge, she's hanging on to it, and she's looking at him, and he's telling her, I've seen that raw power. I can't remember the words verbatim, but basically, I've seen that raw power before. It didn't scare me then. It does now. She just is looking at him like, what did I do wrong? What have I done? What do you mean? Why does it scare you? She has that kind of look like, what are you saying about me? Why are you rejecting me? So I think, personally, I think those two scenes are connected, and I think she had some kind of vision, and she literally levitated above the rock, and it scared him to death, because it was just the ground splits, and then the little rocks around her start to levitate, or the little pebbles, and then she starts levitating, and he witnesses possibly her having a vision, and then she falls forward and climbs back up the rock and is looking at him, and that's when he rejects it and says, no, I'm not doing this. And then she gets angry and confused, and she's wandering around the island trying to figure it out for herself. And then that's probably where you have the scene. She could be talking to Luke, saying that something inside me, it's always been there, now it's awake, I need help. And that's connected to the ending scene that is foreshadowing Reylo, and it's probably her speaking to Luke. But it's not Luke that she needs help from, it's Kylo.
Yeah, because there was actually a really interesting point that a commenter made on one of our podcasts, and it was by Jay Rossi, and he said that particular scene where she's saying, I need help finding my place and all of this, she could very well be talking to Luke, but she could be saying it from the perspective of, I need help, but I don't feel like I'm getting that help from you, so I'm going to be moving in a new direction with that. And it was actually, this was actually like one of the points, and I thought that was an interesting perspective to take on kind of that last scene, and what Rey could, what it could mean for Rey to be saying that to Luke. And then also with the foreshadowing of Reylo at the very end. And one of the points that I wrote down for just what I'm really interested to see in The Last Jedi, and one of the scenes that kind of reminded me of this, like, I'm not saying that this is actually what's going to happen, but it just gave me that feeling. It's where we get a brief glimpse of the cliff scene, where Rey is diving into the water, and then we have a scene right after that. I'm not sure if it's a part of the same scene, but Rey is standing as Luke is behind her, and he's looking very ominous, and he's just sort
Mm-hmm.
of standing there, kind of, looking very kind of dark and mysterious, and almost like she didn't expect him to be there. And
Yeah, she looks caught. Is what she looks like.
yeah, it looked like she was caught, and it kind of made me think about, when Kylo Ren ends up going to Octu, it makes me wonder if Rey ends up seeking help from Kylo Ren, or she and Kylo Ren are doing things with each other, force wise, that the Luke is not approving of, or he is suspecting that there is some weird stuff going on between them. And so it's almost like the discussion of Kylo Ren and Rey being compared to Adam and Eve, and then Luke being like the angry god in the Garden of Eden,
Mm-hmm.
who's like catching them doing naughty things and stuff. And in this case, like, it wouldn't actually be like, it wouldn't be like that. It would just be more that they're exploring the Force together, and they're exploring this connection that they have, that Luke doesn't like, because he sees like these two very powerful, dangerous Force users coming together and potentially forming, you know, an even more like lethal, like
Mm-hmm.
they'll come together as that like lethal unit.
Mm-hmm. um, that reminded me of one of the other scenes in the trailer, or at least it's cut to look like it's the same scene. But one is where Rey is jumping into the water, and the next one she's coming out of the water. But we don't know for sure if that's actually in the same scene. To appear that way. And what I'm wondering is, a lot of people were kind of upset that she knew how to swim, but I don't know for sure. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. But I just kind of got the feeling of whenever she slapped her hand on top of that rock and like she was climbing out of the water, there was just this very, it wanted you to focus on that moment. And this is just me wearing my Reylo glasses, but what if Kylo was actually helping her? He got her to the rocks, and then you don't see him, and he's swimming away somewhere else. And that's whenever she comes out of the water. They say her hair is still up in her three buns, and it's probably true. But honestly, from how quickly the angle is, and then the fact that she's coming out of the water, one of her buns could have been coming loose. I don't know, still just speculation. But that could be connected to the sizzle reel whenever she looks up and she has this very stunned, cautious, just, why did you just do that kind of expression on her face. Now, I don't know for sure, that's just speculation.
Yeah, cause like my memory of those scenes, like, and I would have to actually like go and rewatch the trailer, but just to kind of like just to refresh my memory on it. But
Mm-hmm.
it just seemed
Mm-hmm.
like from when she when she's getting out of the water, and then when she is standing up to face Luke, in that particular scene, it looks like her hair is down. Am
It
I?
is.
Yeah, and so, but then her hair isn't down for when she's climbing out of the water.
It didn't appear that way, but the angle of it, in my opinion, it can be a little deceiving. However, I do understand why a lot of people still say that her hair is up in its buns, and it is, or at least is, it leads you to believe it is, because the way her shoulders are up because she's heaving herself out of the water, it's very deceptive. You can't see her whole neck, you can't see all of her hair, you don't know for sure, and it could have been coming loose. And then as she gets out of the water completely, her hair is, half of it's fallen down. So I don't know, but yeah, whenever she's standing up and Luke is being a creeper, quite literally, in the fog. Her hair is halfway down, and also there seems to be something glowing. She's sitting at like either a campfire or something. Some people said it looks red, like Kylo Ren's saber. I'm assuming it's more of a campfire to keep warm because she's wet. And it's just, and honestly, to me, it looked at first glance, it looked like she was in some kind of cave. And I know some Reylos were speculating, and this is pure speculation, but they were speculating that Kylo Ren helps Rey once she falls off the cliff edge, and he swims her because, of course, the ledge they're on, there won't be a beach anywhere nearby, so he swims her into a cave and helps her up onto the rocks, and then they're stuck there. And there was something possibly about a type of monster that Rey would have to face at some point in a cave. And they were saying maybe it's that, but see, that's still, because we don't have enough. It's just mostly it's speculation at this point. So we just don't know for sure. But honestly, the way the trailer was cut, it was focusing on the fact, in my opinion, I don't think a romance between Kylo Ren and Rey is going to be that difficult to portray on big screen. And I know a lot of people, they're more conservative, more cautious, and I understand, but once you actually watch the movie, then it's like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense, and it happens faster than you think. But before you're watching the movie, you're thinking, well, they're going to have to do this and this and this and this and this, and you have it set in your head, they're going to have to do it this specific way for it to make sense. But with the movie, there are so many clever little angles that you can portray a scene, hesitations, dialogue or lack of dialogue, which is even more important, gazes between each other, and more importantly, what they're already building, sorry, between Kylo Ren and Rey is showing that these two are literally the Romeo and Juliet of Force users, or the Adam and Eve of Force users, but they're not trying to rub it in to where everybody notices, because once you actually get into the nitty gritty of what Kylo Ren and Rey are, then it just becomes obvious. At that point, it's just like, oh, well, duh, that's what they were going for to begin with. And I think that's one of the reasons, this is just my personal speculation, I think that's one of the reasons they let the Rey Skywalker theory fly like it did. And I think that's why they put the red herrings in there of Rey Skywalker, because they wanted to mislead people due to the fact that once you look at the film, Kylo Ren and Rey, it's so obvious. It is so obvious. Just think about it. If we didn't have the Rey Skywalker theory, how many people would be saying, oh, Kylo Ren's just the reverse Anakin. Him and Rey are going to have a romance. It's so obvious. He's going to be the correction. It's just so obvious. He's going to have a redemption arc. He's the Skywalker. Because then once that eliminates Rey as a Skywalker, everybody has to embrace the fact that, oh, well, Kylo Ren's a Skywalker. Well, obviously, he's not going to die. And he's not going to just be evil forever. He's the Skywalker. So he has to be redeemed in some way, shape, or form, because there's too much love for Luke and Anakin and Padme and Leia and Han. These characters are so beloved by the fandom. Some people, they obviously just don't care, don't want to pay attention. But Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, he is the descendant of all of these powerful, beautiful characters. They're not going to have him evil, and they're not going to have him die. It's not going to happen. So then it becomes obvious that Kylo Ren and Rey this entire time were supposed to be the romance. So.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And even just recently, I had my mom watch Vincent Vendetta's part 1 and 2 Reylo, the Reylo theory video. And because I feel like I've been, talking about the evidence, and I've been trying to explain this to her in particular for a long time, but there's so much evidence that unless you actually see it and you hear it and you
Right.
kind of have that tangible experience with it, it's hard to really grasp like how much evidence there really is for Reylo becoming canon. And so after I watched those videos with her, we ended up watching The Force Awakens again, and she was completely stunned. Like she
Yes.
viewed The Force
Yes.
Awakens in a completely different way. And even watching the trailer, she views the trailer in a completely different way now. After having been exposed to all of that evidence. Oh, I was wanting to comment too because we were talking about the cliff scene where
Hmm.
it looks like Rey is in a cave when she's approached by Luke, and I actually didn't notice like the reflection of what could be campfire, so I'll have to go and look for that. But it would be
Hmm.
but just because I was thinking earlier that just because they cut the scene in a way to look as though it's just Rey or it's just Rey and Luke, that doesn't mean that Kylo Ren isn't there. And actually
Exactly.
the way that they cut it is kind of misleading because they only show you so much of what's going on.
Hmm.
So I'm really interested to and I know that the original spoilers for that scene, Kylo Ren was heavily involved in, in those spoilers. So
Hmm.
I'm really wanting to see like what that scene is going to be like, and maybe Luke is looking so ominous because he's stumbling upon, Rey and Kylo Ren sitting at a campfire warming up together. I don't know.
It could be whenever Kylo Ren is telling Rey to kill the past if she has to. It's the only way to become what you're meant to be, things like that. Because I remember some people said there's the translation where Snoke is speaking and he uses the feminine form of you when he says, "When I found you." And as far as that's concerned, some people are arguing and saying the issue with that is some of the translations have been incorrect before. And the thing about it is that line sounds designated to Kylo, is what it sounds like. At least it just, and it could be misleading, but me personally, I think it's to Kylo. And then some people also have pointed out that whenever Kylo's speaking, he uses the feminine form of you when he says "kill it if you have to," or it's the only way to become who you're meant to be. The "you're meant to be" is feminine. It uses, I think, the feminine prefix or something. But that very much interests me because I always was assuming that's he was talking to Rey anyway, and I had assumed that this happened sometime on Octo. And yeah, we've been mispronouncing it. It's not Octo, it's Octo.
I know Octo sounds so weird.
I know it just makes me think of like a big toe.
I know that's what it makes me think of too, just like a giant hairy toe.
Well, that's kind of what Luke acts like in the beginning. Whenever he's just like, "Who are you? Why are you here?"
Yeah, Luke the giant hairy toe.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just it's just so funny to me that there are still people who sincerely believe in the Rey Skywalker theory, but I can't blame them though, because like I said, they've been baiting that this entire time. And hey, I mean, you wouldn't expect that Kylo Ren and Rey would be a thing because you're thinking, oh, well, Rey's a Skywalker. It's so obvious. Well, no, it's not like that, and it's not going to go the way you think.
There are going to be people who are going to be very sorely disappointed by The Last
Oh
Jedi
yes.
because
Oh yes.
I was watching some trailer reactions, and there was one reaction where it was like this really cute little family, so I don't want to sound like I'm saying anything bad about them, but they still believe that Rey and Kylo Ren are brother and sister and that Rey is a solo when that was debunked by Daisy Ridley
What?
herself, like not long after The Force Awakens came out. That was like
Yeah.
back in 2016.
I'm, honestly, I didn't believe she was a solo from the moment that Han lifts up the little part of the floor or the grate on the Falcon, and he's just like, "Who are you?" I
Yeah.
mean, it's just Luke does the same thing to her. I mean, but anyway, I'm
I completely agree though. I don't she's obviously not a Skywalker or a Solo, but there are still people out there who believe that she is either one of them. And I was so shocked that this family like believed that she was a Solo because I was like, do you not like follow I guess like they don't follow all of the stuff that goes on within like the Star Wars universe because Daisy Ridley, she said in an interview that Rey is not a solo, you know, and
Hmm.
that's obvious. She actually got kind of salty about it and was like, obviously they
Yeah,
haven't watched the movie if they think
yeah,
that I'm a
yeah,
solo.
yeah. I think what a lot of the general audience does is they just watch the movies and they don't follow the little extra interviews and tidbits because, I mean, well, we've discussed it. When I first watched The Force Awakens, I kind of thought maybe Rey was a Skywalker, but that wasn't my issue. My issue was thinking, oh God, it's not that she's a Skywalker. There's going to be a love triangle, and I hate love triangles, and that's why I steered clear of anything to do with The Force Awakens, Rey, Kylo, because I liked Rey and Kylo, obviously, but I steered clear of it completely because I thought I'm not going to get invested because I don't like the way love triangles happen. They have to diminish one of the characters or all three of the characters in some way, shape, or form to make one of the relationships work. I just hate it because it ruins all three characters. And I didn't want Finn ruined, Kylo ruined, or Rey ruined. And I was like, no. So
Yeah, because that
once I
was
researched,
Oh,
go ahead, go ahead.
sorry. I was just gonna say that that when I first saw The Force Awakens, that was my initial impression too, is that they were almost forming a love triangle between
Mm-hmm.
Kylo Ren, Rey, and Finn. Like just the way that they were setting it up, like it felt love triangle-ish to me. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm actually like not opposed to love triangles. Like I've loved stories that have love triangles in them. But you know, because Finn, but like you said, where it has to diminish one character in order for the relationship to work, you know, because I was rooting for Rey and Kylo Ren, I didn't want to have Finn diminished to make that
Mm-hmm.
happen, especially because like Finn is such a good character and like literally
Yeah, I
there
know.
literally there's like just everything nice about him and nothing like he's all cinnamon and spice. You
And
know.
everything
Yeah, and
nice.
everything nice. So I
And
didn't like want
hot.
I did yeah, and he's hot and I didn't like want to have anything bad happen to Finn just to make you know Rey and Kylo Ren work, especially since Kylo Ren had just killed his father
I know, and
and
that's
he'd
what I was
sliced up
thinking
Finn's
is that they were going
back.
to do that.
Yeah, yeah, you kind of want Kylo Ren to be drugged through the coals a little bit before before
Mm-hmm.
he's worthy of redemption.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's great for storytelling too because it's a good message really to send to people that whenever you commit an act, you need to be prepared. Well, you'll never truly be prepared for the consequences. You can never completely be, but you need to understand that yeah, there are going to be consequences regardless of what actions you take. And I think that's where the Last Jedi is going. I think that's why they were talking about it being more morally gray. And actually, this branches off into this meta I read, and it's by Mother of Chords on Tumblr. Beautiful meta about BB9E. And this person said that she is suspecting, and she's very, very solid about this. She thinks that this is actually a spoiler. She's so sure about it that she told people to be careful reading it because it could very well be a spoiler. Basically, you had in TFA the BB-8 unit that had a part of information that the First Order wanted. And possibly in TLJ, you're going to have the BB-9E unit that's going to have information that the Resistance wants. And this is a foil from TFA to TLJ, and it shows that both sides are not just black and white. They sometimes commit the same tactics to get the information, and this could lead to why they go after DJ and then how the First Order, everything goes and blows up and everything, because BB-9E is kind of like a shadow or a representation of Kylo Ren himself as well. And BB-9E is probably going to be the one, because you remember that cute little gif that everybody was reblogging, and it says, "I saved you, Daddy Kylo," and it was like crazy BB-9E just going nuts on the little Lego. I think it was like what do you call them? I'm not familiar with the terms of Star Wars, but it's one of those big ships.
Um,
But
I no,
oh, go ahead.
I'm not familiar with that. I'm not familiar with that at all. That post.
Oh, well, it was from the Lego, I think a commercial or something promoting it, and it was BB9E going nuts on one of the ships and just pressing on all the consoles, and blaster bullets were firing everywhere, and it was taking out ships, and Mother of Porgs was saying, well, this could be a hint toward where BB9E is going and their arc and how they reflect upon what is happening with Kylo Ren, because Kylo Ren's going to turn. He's obviously going to at some point turn on the First Order. He's probably not going to be with the Resistance, but he is going to turn on the First Order and make his own decision.
Yeah.
And Mother of Porgs was saying that it's possible BB9E is going to be a reflection of that, and at some point BB9E is actually going to assist in the destruction of wherever that scene is where you have Phasma and Finn fighting, and then possibly where you have Kylo Ren reaching for, it's Rey, and the background behind him is all blazing fire. That could have been BB9E starting explosions on the ship itself and sabotaging the ship itself, because it's what Kylo Ren wanted. And this was something that really got me thinking. She said, or the person said, what if BB9E downloads the message that Leia had sent out to Ben before Ben fell about why she didn't tell him of Darth Vader, who Darth Vader was? And that sizzle reel scene where Ben looks lost and just shocked, and then all of a sudden he jerks and looks to the side, and he's looking at someone and he looks startled. What if that's Hux telling him that Snoke will see you now? And at that point, Ben was watching this message from his mother that's over, I think it's probably like 6 years old now, 7, and he finally gets to see that message from her, because we did see in this latest trailer that he's not going to kill her. He couldn't kill her. So
yeah, it's funny because if you watch all of the trailer reactions, everyone is so convinced that he's going to kill her, and it's like, no, okay, he is not going to kill her.
Well, the thing also is, you had the Poe interrogation mirrored by the Rey interrogation. Well, now you have the father scene mirrored by the mother scene. He's not going to kill her. He's not going to repeat the same things over again. That's just not how making scenes in movies works. If they repeat the same scene just to have him do the same exact thing, there's no point. There was no point in that at all. So he's not going to kill her.
Yeah, because there would be nothing, even just from a movie-going experience, there would be nothing interesting about watching, the exact same thing happen again. And and a lot of people feel more for the sentimental reasons because of Carrie Fisher and how she's recently passed away and everything, and I feel the exact same way. But I think that if you're just looking at it strictly for storytelling purposes, I really highly doubt that he's actually going to kill her. It's going to be more that his opportunity to kill her and him not following through with it becomes his first major defection from the First Order.
Right, it's going to be so iconic and so beautiful and just so gut-wrenching, and you don't know how it's going to be stopped. I personally think that it's going to go big. This is what I believe. I think The Last Jedi is go big or go home. So I think what they're going to do is he's not going to be able to take the shot. And he's going to just sit there in his TIE silencer, and it's beeping because it's on target once you have the target acquired, and it's just beeping at him, and he can't do it, and his lips are trembling, and he just tears in his eyes, and he can't do it. And then it's not going to be like someone hits him from the side or anything like that, I don't think personally, but it's going to let the audience know without shadow of a doubt, Ben can't do it, cannot do it. I don't think that anything's going to distract him or anything like that. I do, however, wonder if we're actually going to get a fight between Poe and Ben, because remember, Ben says, I had no idea we had the best pilots in the Resistance on board. And I'm sorry. I just maybe not. That's just kind of my hopes is to see them in a dogfight. But it would be nice. It would be nice if Ben and Poe got into a fight and we see which one of them showed the other up, or if they're fairly well matched. We would see. I think it'd be really cool, but who knows?
I think that that would be cool too, especially since in some ways where Poe is, you know, the best pilot in the Resistance, he must have a pretty close relationship with Leia.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can see Ben fighting Poe, like especially, you know, like his animosity towards Poe coming from a place of jealousy and envy.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Mm-hmm.
would be interesting to see them fight each other.
That would be interesting, very interesting. I know that Poe at one point gets slapped by Leia. I remember that they said they actually took, I think, 30 shots just to get it right.
Oh, I never even like I've never even heard of this. This is like
Yeah, I may be excessive on how many retakes. Maybe it wasn't 30, but I know they took enough that the actor said we wanted to get it just right. So I thought, damn, that must mean that scene is really iconic for him to, get slapped by Leia, and they had to do it just right.
why would Poe be slapped by Leia? Like what
some go ahead, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna my question was just gonna be like what would he do to have to warrant that type of response?
A lot of people are speculating that it has something to do with Ben, and I kind of agree with them because it would make the most sense from a storytelling standpoint and an emotional standpoint because this movie, in my opinion, it's going to come out of left field. People are not going to be expecting it, and I think they're using the vagueness of The Force Awakens to really hit a home run with The Last Jedi, because you're going to find out about Kylo Ren and Rey in ways that not even the Reylos are speculating. And I know I'm the risky optimist type.
I'm in the same boat as you when it comes to that though, because I feel like just based off of the trailer and based off of how they constructed it and everything, I mean, I felt like the trailer was pretty much about it was an explanation for why Rey and Kylo Ren end up coming together. And and you know, just with how it shows them kind of starting off in their respective journeys, and then at the very end, you know, him offering his hand to her. You know, it was all about Rey and Kylo Ren. So
Mhm.
so I at this point like the trailer made me kind of very optimistic about the
Mhm.
movie, and
Mhm.
like you said, how they're gonna go big or go home. Like this movie, they're gonna whip out everything. They're gonna whip out
Yeah.
all of their cards and their tricks
Yeah.
to make
And I
this
think
like the
it's
best that they possibly can.
absolutely, absolutely. And like I said, and I understand how some people are more conservative. They don't think there could be a kiss. Me, I don't know. I'm not saying yay or nay. I personally think, like I've stated before, that if there is a kiss in episode 8, it's going to be well placed because you have no idea how they have the scenes arranged. You don't know the true history behind Kylo Ren and Rey. What we're getting is that they're the yin and the yang, that they're two sides of something, that they are both protagonists. So you're starting to get the idea that these two people, what they're dropping, the hints that they're dropping, is that these two are intimately tied together. And in doing that, it's kind of I guess you could say it's a way of cheating a little bit because you can send their romantic arc, or just, I mean, just their arc in general, their relationship. You can send it light years ahead by saying something like that because then you don't have to go through all the extra little teeny tiny tedious moments where you would have to build their relationship. You can say, well, the two of them have actually been having visions about each other since they were little. Kylo Ren has known of this girl, and maybe Snoke was after both of them at one point, and instead he took Kylo, and that's why Kylo, whenever he hears about the girl, he's just like, "What girl?" And then the more he's around Rey, he's like, she's just a scavenger. I thought this girl was possibly the one that I'd, seen in my dreams, and maybe she was supposed to be like me, akin to me, but maybe not. Because also, I want to bring this up. I made a post, and I'd never thought about this, but since the trailer, the second one's come out, this is from the TFA novelization. This is Kylo Ren, and he's talking about Rey to Snoke. That is all she is. Yes, a scavenger from the inconsequential Jakku, completely untrained but strong in the Force, stronger than she knows. His mask off, Ren replied with what seemed to be his usual assurance. No one would have sensed the difference. Snoke did. The Supreme Leader's voice was flat. You have compassion for her. No, never. Compassion for an enemy of the Order? Now, he says this out loud. I never knew he said it out loud. I thought he was just thinking it because I've never actually read the novel. Anyway, Snoke proceeds and says, I perceive the problem. It isn't her strength that is making you fail. It's your weakness. Now, since I've seen the trailer, this is what I've gleaned from that particular part of the novel. There are several things happening in this scene at once, but the most important element is Kylo's initial response. That is all she is. Yes. Telling his master that Rey is nothing more than some random girl from some random planet who just so happens to be strong in the Force. Then Snoke picking up on the conspicuous chink in Kylo's armor, his compassion, which actually isn't the most damning evidence Snoke should have sensed. The question begs to be asked, what is Kylo hiding from Snoke about Rey? But more importantly, why? Kylo was hiding something from him. And it wasn't just the fact that he had compassion for her. The compassion was just at the forefront. There's something behind it that Snoke didn't fully grasp yet. But
That's
in
true.
the novelization, I remember that people were talking about how Snoke kept coming into Kylo's mind saying, you bring the girl to me, you bring her to me, you bring her to me. And I'm wondering about that because Kylo kept, in the novelization, of course, he's much more verbose. He's very chatty. But even in the movie, when he tells her, you convinced the BB unit to show you the map, you, a scavenger. And he just sounds actually like shocked, like he doesn't understand how. And then once you start to connect the dots that maybe he was thinking she's somebody who she is, but he just never expected that this girl who is so important, who is so powerful, is just a scavenger. And then at the end of the novelization, he's like, it is you. And then, of course, his look at the end of the movie when she grabs the saber, he doesn't look angry. He's like, I found you.
Yeah, and you actually bring up a really good point about the line where he says that she's just an inconsequential scavenger from Jakku and nothing more.
Right.
The fact that he was almost justifying the fact that she was just a scavenger and nothing more, but she was powerful within the Force, okay, so basically what he's saying is that he's basically trying to reassure Snoke that she is just this random girl who happens to be powerful within the Force and who's a scavenger, which by all intents and purposes, or I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but
no, you are.
by all means, that should be that. You would think that that's correct, that she would just be around a random scavenger girl to him who's powerful within the Force. But the fact that he says an inconsequential scavenger and nothing more, it basically means that there is a lot more to her that means something to him, that, like you said, Snoke doesn't necessarily pick up on all of the extra details. He just picks up on the fact that he has this well of compassion reserved for her for some reason. But but I think that that could definitely point to the possibility that, and this is something that I've thought for a long time, that Kylo Ren has had Force visions about Rey, like Rey has had Force visions about him. And so he kind of is being guided by the Force to her, and is sort of listening to this sense that she is important to his destiny.